So look, I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about Barry O'Brien while he logs on. Hopefully, he'll be on the phone and he'll be able to talk about some of this, some of his amazing career. I is that you, Barry?
Hello.
Hey, Barry. I'm now going to introduce you.
I'm so sorry about this. We had
no worries.
Snafu.
We'll just
press on.
Yep. So,
Okay.
folks, it is my privilege. As Irving said, this is the first of our Sony talks where we're hoping to bring content and the kind of brains behind the content to you guys directly so you can get a better appreciation both for what the studio produces, but also for what our networks air in the region. As Irving mentioned, Lincoln Rhyme aired last night on AXN in Latin America, and then the U.S. airs on NBC. Barry O'Brien, who has found time in his schedule to spend time with us today, is our executive producer and showrunner for this series. Barry doesn't know this, but as you think about Barry's career, he has had a profound effect both on me and on my children's lives. Barry's very early experiences were with shows like Happy Days, The Love Boat, and Silver Spoons, as well as Perfect Strangers and Laverne and Shirley. He's gone through a lot of other shows throughout the years, including Touch and Intelligence and The Following and Castle, and is the co-creator of Hannah Montana, which is the way it ties into my children because my kids are not old enough to remember the Fonz. However, for the last 8 seasons, he was the executive producer for CSI Miami and has now joined our production of Lincoln Rhyme as the showrunner and basically the brains behind the operation. I wanted to thank you, Barry, for spending the time that you have with us. It is a real privilege, albeit digitally, to have you here with all of our. There's now 55 of us on this call, so that's pretty cool.
Oh my goodness!
I know.
Wow, that's very cool.
I know. So I guess the show.
Well, let me quickly interject and say, first of all, I apologize for the technical snafu, and sorry I'm on the phone and not visible and not with you.
Oh, no worries.
And I want to thank everyone, if you can hear me, for being here, for your interest, your support in the show, and your partnership, because that's the way I view it. We're in this together, and I think we really have the makings of a long-running hit on our hands with Lincoln Rhyme. So I just want to be totally available, wide open. Let's discuss anything that you're interested in exploring or knowing more about, or challenging or whatever. Let's just jump in, and thank you.
Thank you. So Lincoln Rhyme in season 1 is based a great deal on the movie The Bone Collector, and in the first season, you spend the episodes basically chasing after this guy who is effectively similar to the character in the movie. I just wanted to understand in creating the first season, what was your creative process when you thought about how do you make this from a movie into a longer running show? What were the characters that were part of the movie or not part of the movie that you decided to kind of spend more time on so that this could be a deeper and broader relationship with the program other than just the 2 main characters? And what in your thought process has been kind of the projection beyond the first season and how the show develops?
Well, great question. You hit 2 words that, deeper and broader are the 2 words that are driving myself and our team. The contributions not only of the movie, starring Denzel Washington, Angelina Jolie, directed by Philip Noyce, great movie, very successful. We also have a broad readership of the books written by Jeff Beaver. So I feel personally a loyalty to both contributions, the books and the movie. And then the job is really to take what was handed to us by both of those mediums and expand and broaden and go deeper. And that has been my operating guide throughout season one, and will definitely lead us into the future. We tried to make these characters sort of our own, and starts on the page and expands into the performance. We've got, there's every discussion about the show has to, I think, include our cast, because we have a really extraordinary cast. Russell Hornsby is embodying Lincoln Rhyme in his own way. He's a very powerful actor. He's a Shakespearean trained stage actor, and he's got a tremendous amount of gravitas and strength as a performer, as an actor. And he brings that to the character of Lincoln Rhyme. I like to say with Russell, he can command a room with just his voice. The character has a loss of mobility, obviously, as you know, and Russell really controls and commands scenes just with that powerful voice and his presence. And Ariel Kebbel is playing Amelia Sachs, and I think she brings a real haunting vulnerability to the role. She has been in the business for a long time, even though she's still young. She started young and has a really impressive list of credits. But this was, in her case, I think it was a situation of the right part met the right performer in Ariel, and she has just owned this role and brought humanity to and vulnerability and pain and triumph to the character of Amelia. I've spent time with Ariel on panels, and she likes to say that Amelia is really part of her, and I believe that's true. We also have Michael Imperioli, Emmy Award-winning Michael Imperioli from The Sopranos, who is he's playing Solito, the hard-boiled detective, and Michael really brings a sense of himself to the role, and he's really brought dimension and humanity to that character. We have a fuller team. We've got Kate is our forensic expert, and Felix is our computer wizard. And you've seen those characters performed in other series, but I really think that we've got two very special actors in those two roles, and an opportunity to really humanize them and tell the story of who they are. And the last thing I'll say about season one that I think departs a bit from the books is that we opened a door for the audience to enter and spend time with the bone collector. We break what we call break POV. That means we break out of the narrative of the case and go home with the bone collector. And we really were able to sort of portray his duality. He is married with a wife, and he works as a freelance, forensic technician. And you see him at home, and obviously this terrible secret is hidden from his wife and anyone who knows him. And you see how those two tracks of his life, the married man, the family man, the humble, loving spouse, running parallel with his serial killer, he's also the serial killer, and those tracks merge in a very terrifying way in season one. And I feel proud of the fact that of how we brought that character to life, and you really got to know him and sort of got to go underneath his psychopathy, and discover him as a human being.
Right.
So I think the short answer, the summation is that what we try to do is just back to what you said, go broader and go deeper while remaining loyal to the franchise.
I mean, for when you watch one or two of the episodes, there's there's a part of it that is, kind of sleuthy, where you're trying to figure out, the whodunit of the episode or what's going on with that particular one. There's the overarching kind of search for this particular criminal that obviously Russell is conducting along with Amelia Sachs. And then there's the whole other part, which is the context of trying to develop relationships between all of these people inside the show throughout the season, so that it becomes a rich environment to be able to continue to to watch. What in
Right.
the process around trying to find this particular criminal throughout the first season is also overlaid with like a daily whodunit, or a whodunit over a couple of days or whatever it is. Do you try to tie those kind of one-off crimes or issues that are going on with the larger story? Are they all intertwined, or is there the ability to kind of come in and go out and still get satisfaction when you
Well, I
watch
think the
the
answer is
episode?
it's both. It's as you mentioned, we
I was
do
hoping you'd say that.
we do tell stories of what they call case of the week. Lincoln has created this task force with Amelia and Solito and Kate and Felix, and they are tasked with solving the most difficult, hard to crack cases on the NYPD docket. They are also looking for, in season one, a season-long hunt, as referenced by the title, for the bone collector. We sort of try to create a weave where the task force is working on the case of the week, which is introduced, investigated, and solved all inside of a single episode. But overarching all of that is the bone collector's hunt, and we try to weave it in and out. The cases of the week don't, by nature, intersect with the hunt for the bone collector. However, the task force is always hunting for the bone collector in season one. They're never relaxing that hunt. And each episode, while solving a case, we incrementally move the hunt for the bone collector along and propel us forward as they get closer and closer to the final confrontation at the end of the season.
Right. So there's a short-term payoff, which is the daily one, and then there's the long-term seasonal payoff, which is, if you stick with this, you'll get to unravel this whole thing. And then in parallel, there's obviously the whole other side of it, which is the relationship side of this thing, right? Which is
yes, that's you've hit it perfectly put, and that is our goal. That was our goal in season one, and is certainly our goal in season two. And the last sort of box that you check there, the character, I really feel that we started that process of going deeper into character in season one, and I think we will really evolve and go very deep in season two and beyond. I think this is kind of the hallmark of procedural television going forward. I like, in terms of any description about character, I like to frame it this way. I was on CSI Miami for 8 years, as you mentioned, and the star of that show was Horatio Caine, played by David Caruso. And he was kind of a mysterious figure behind the mirrored glasses, as you remember that kind of iconic look that he had. And I think, listen, CSI, you could largely say was the show of the 2000s, and it had a style, and the cases were propulsive and hard to solve. And in our case, in our show, we had Horatio Caruso, who was sort of an enigmatic, I don't know, almost haunting figure, who was driven to solve crimes, and which he did successfully for 10 years. But I think there was one missed opportunity. We never really went home with Horatio Caine. We didn't go too far beneath the glasses to really understand him and to detail his life. And I think, back to your comment about character in Lincoln Rhyme, I feel like that will be a real guide for us going forward. we will tell the story of Lincoln Ryman. What is it to be this, leading, rising detective who is suddenly struck with a loss of mobility?
Right.
What is his life afterwards?
Well,
What are the
certainly
limitations?
in the pilot, you show how you tease the fact that there's going to be there's a much deeper relationship and issues that he has personally with his wife and his kids, and what's going on there that I think is very exciting.
It's interesting, and we want to deepen that. We tell that story going forward in season 1. We meet her again. We meet his son. He's got a complex relationship with his caregiver, Claire, and he has challenges. And as anyone in who has counseled us or assisted us from the disability community says that loss of mobility is an end. It's also a new beginning. So we want to tell that story about what those new beginnings are. And I think and we want to go down the line of all our characters. Amelia Sachs, the same way, a young, beautiful girl. What has drawn her to this work? We start to answer that question. We will continue to answer that question. What does it bring her? What does it cost her? Who is she as a young woman going forward in this very sort of high octane position? And I think all of this together, sort of the overarching search for a killer, the solving of one-off crimes, and then the deepening story of our characters give us kind of a roadmap into the future of procedural television, is the way I look at it.
Right.
And we want to take that responsibility really seriously.
Right. In your creative process, I mean, you're running the show. You have a room of writers, presumably. What's the process that you go through in terms of creating the episodes, or what's the kind of, what are the steps that you go through when you're writing for a show, or when you're kind of story arching for the show? Is it something where you do episode by episode, or is it something where you guys all kind of you each do something associated with it, or is it much more of a kind of a group effort? And then obviously the second part of the question is, how has COVID-19 affected your ability to be able to do that without having to hang out with each other in a dark, cramped room with a lot of Diet Pepsi?
That's a great question. You ask very good questions.
I'm sorry.
I am blessed with a great staff of writers. John Cowan is one of the leading writers in television, and he joined us in season 1 and will join us in season 2. Moira Kurland, who had a show on NBC called The In Between, was with us in season 1. We worked on Castle just by coincidence together, and a number of other. Lauren Greer is a young writer coming up who did a phenomenal job. But I have been doing this for a long time, and in the process of doing it for a long time, I've worked on shows where it worked harmoniously. I've worked on shows where it didn't, and I like to create a harmonious atmosphere. So we have that where we work very well as a team. We do get together as a group. I like to say that we start the breaking of stories from the 30,000-foot level, the big, broad, macro level.
Right.
We've got our hunt for the bone collector, as you referenced, and we want to look at that and see what of that story is applicable to a certain episode. And we definitely find a few, we call them moves, where we'll see the bone collector, we'll get a tiny clue, it will pay off or it won't pay off. We then get into the case and kind of broadly break out the case. We've got the murder. We certainly have the difficulty in solving the murder that brings that case to our task force. And we look at the investigative beats of those. So we kind of break them out in broad hash marks, and then beneath all of that is the character stories. How does I used to say it out loud, and in season 2 I may actually have it written down. The question: what does this case, or how does this case affect our team? they each have a, you know, if it's working well, you want the case to have a personal, you know, either an entrance point or an effect on our team. And sort of all those things together, we sort of talk about from a very broad, you know, high above the sky kind of a way. And then as we get sort of a clearer idea of what the episode is, we break it out on a big board, beat by beat by beat, story beat by beat, teaser, acts 1 through 5. And then a writer is assigned and goes off and writes an outline, and then we kind of go from there to script. So we do function largely and effectively as a group, and then we rely on an individual writer to write the episode.
And the COVID-19 of it all?
COVID-19. This is a you know, I think an evolving question, because it's the way it currently.
I mean,
is
you guys didn't all just decide in March, you know what, we're gonna self-isolate everybody together.
No, we did not.
Okay.
We're not living in a big dormitory.
It's not like a commune or something, you know.
Although that would have been pretty prescient if we had that idea.
Right.
No, we're not doing that. We are relying on Zoom. Zoom writers' rooms are it's a very different experience. We have the advantage of, you know, having familiarity with each other, so it works. We're all in boxes on the screen and talking through these story beats.
Right. You know, I've found that you know, I sit in Miami, and my colleagues, I have 3 other colleagues who sit. 2 of them sit in Europe, 1 of them sits in Asia, and then every other one of my colleagues is in Culver City. And so we used to have these leadership meetings, and I'd be in this meeting, and it'd be me and my 3 non-LA based colleagues on the phone, and then everybody else is in the room, and they're talking about, you know, what they did on the weekend, and they're passing around the bags with chips, and all you can hear is just all this noise and all these people. And of course, when somebody's speaking on one end of the table to the group, there's a couple of guys on the other end of the table, and one of them's going over there saying, "Could you pass me the water?" And so you end up as the guy not in the room, kind of not really engaged. And what's happened to us now is that because we all do this on Zoom or on Teams or whatever it is that we're doing, there is a very there's a much more enhanced level of etiquette that happens, and people actually have to ask for turns, and they each get to speak, and everybody mutes their microphones when they're not engaged. Do you find that that's helped in your writer's room, or do you find that the banter and the back and forth in the room when you're all in the room adds more value to it?
Well, as you mentioned, technologically, you're kind of the banter is challenged, right? It's like it is hard.
Totally.
Spontaneity is muted somewhat, and I
literally
feel like because we know each other and there's a shorthand, you're helped. I have friends on shows that they don't know anybody on the screen, and I think that's a challenge. But it's definitely an adjustment. I feel the beauty of it, the positive side is we can get the work done. We don't have to be stopped. We can go ahead. We can break season 2. We can write season 2. And at the point where we're going to be facing production, there are a lot of discussions about how to do that. Interesting byproduct of COVID, there may be a call for more intimate scenes and, you know, 1 and 2 person scenes, which will lend itself to more personal stories, more emotional stories.
Right.
You know, you're probably not going to have giant, you know, group scenes at Grand Central Station for a while. So the stories might become a bit smaller, which might make them a bit more interesting and more psychologically based. But I know we can produce this series. You know, it's just kind of deciding how NBC specifically wants to do it.
How when you guys deal with the broadcaster, or how much involvement is there in tweaking the story further down the season as the beginning of the season comes alive on the screen? You know, like when they look at it and they say, you know what, these particular characters or this particular type of story is. Is there a lot of influence in that sense, or or is it more subtle in that way?
It's everything. They're certainly our partners. It's
Of course.
their production. It's their money. So I have a very collaborative style. I've worked with showrunners who don't have that style, but I do. I feel like we're all in this together, like I mentioned at the outset of this call. And the way it works is I've already pitched season 2 to NBC and got their enthusiasm and their feedback, and I begin to make adjustments based on what they respond to, what they would like to see tweaked. And that back and forth continues throughout the whole process. We will eventually soon give them story areas, the sort of the brief encapsulated Reader's Digest version of what the story will be, and they'll react to that. And because we hopefully have built some congruence from my season 2 overall pitch, the input is more as you would get from a partner. It's hey, what if you did this? Oh, I like what you're saying. You could move this along. You could move this up. Stuff like that. And as we get to the outline, they react to the story beats of the one-off case, and then they will give notes on the script. But I really embrace the partnership dynamic that we have. They're great people. Bruce Evans, Michael Poissant, Lisa Katz. These are great people, really smart. Rebecca McGill is another name that has been doing this forever, and they're just really, really quality partners in the creative process. So the answer is yes, there's lots of input, but it's from sort of, I don't know, it's done shoulder to shoulder. We all are, marching to the same goal, which is to make a great show. So I'm really grateful for the input, and it's a great relationship.
So how do you deal with conflict in the writers' room when you guys are on Zoom, or conflict, or actually rather the discussions around it, so to speak? It's I agree, I disagree. You can't really throw the coffee cup at them, or send somebody out for donuts. You kind of have to work it out, and obviously it's a creative process. Everybody understands that you guys are all artists, and that everybody has their own interpretation of what that art expression should be. Is it
different? It is different. I mean,
yeah.
I'll answer it this way. I feel like the atmosphere in writers' room have changed, going forward, going all around, whether it's comedy or drama. I'll give you one anecdote. A long time ago, I was in the Laverne and Shirley room, and a writer threw a chair at another writer. And that wasn't that uncommon for that time.
Of course.
That doesn't really exist anymore.
Now it's just an emoji. Right?
Is it always perfect? And no. I mean, writers are passionate by nature. Writers are opinionated by nature. So that's what you're paying them for. Now it's kind of my job, I guess, as showrunner to find a way to channel all of that passion and those opinions constructively, and keep the direct animosity out of the process. And we do a really good job. We have a good group. We respect each other. I sort of have this. I have a style where in which we all support each other. We want everyone to win. If everyone wins, the series wins, the show wins. So I think disagreement is healthy, and we have that. And as the showrunner, it's kind of my job to listen and then find that point, that line in the sand where, okay, I got to make a decision. And the process really works, There are occasions where people get, a little wounded feelings, I guess, and we try to keep that to a minimum, and I try to stay on top of that and be kind of solve all conflicts before they get too heated. But relative to the screen, it may be kind of the similar muting process. I mean, the banter and the spontaneity is muted a little bit, and as you mentioned yourself, in Sony, it's like you see more decorum. It's people wait in line to speak, and because they have to. So not a lot of crosstalk.
Yeah, no, it requires those who don't like to talk to have to raise their hand, and it requires those who like to talk too much to actually tone it down a little, because I think it's a
both
nice.
Things may be good. Both things may be
I
good.
totally agree. I totally agree. And I'm the talker, as you can tell. But I totally agree that
you're really good at it.
My father's favorite expression was always, "You just missed a really good opportunity to keep your mouth shut." And I'm
going to use that.
Yeah, anytime. You don't even have to credit me. Look, honestly, it is a real privilege for all of us. I want you to know that we peaked at about 75 people. We're now at 63, but we peaked at 75 about 15 minutes ago.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
Yeah,
incredible.
And it's a real privilege
hanging with us.
For all of us to have a lot of insight into not only the show, but into the process that you guys go through in creating content. Because a lot of us, when we watch the show, you end up being critical of, whether there was a Starbucks coffee mug in the Game of Thrones scene and stuff like that. But in the end,
very fair criticism. Very fair
yes,
criticism.
but in the end, it is a very, very difficult process, and it's not science. It's like alchemy or wizardry for us. But for me, the real payoff is that for years I've always been a board game player. My whole life I was a board game player, and I played this board game, and I always tried to figure it out. And now I can officially change the number 6 to the number 2 in terms of the degrees of separation between me and Kevin Bacon. And for me, that is a real payoff now that I have you on the phone. Since you worked with him, I don't have to play that game anymore. I am 2 degrees from Kevin Bacon, and that is a real
I love
privilege.
Kevin. He's an amazing guy. He's quite extraordinary human being.
Absolutely.
Incredible work ethic. Kevin Bacon has incredible work ethic.
Yeah. No, and a great board game.
And a great board game. Yes, he does.
Yep.
I'm glad I moved your stick.
No, please. It's amazing. Thank you. I don't really have any. This has been very insightful. This has been very, very cool to see how it works. Season 2. Is it a whole new criminal? Does the guy get out of jail?
It'll be a whole new criminal, an entirely different murderer, a serial killer, borrowed liberally from a book of Jeffrey Devers and made our own. I don't want to give too much away, but compelling killer. And the Bone Collector is in jail and may serve as our Hannibal. And there may be some surprises to come, and where he's concerned.
Yes.
But the key operating word for season 2 is character.
Right. And there's no "I'm having an old friend for dinner" at the end of the show, right? Like it was in that movie, right?
No
Clarice. Clarice, I'm having an old friend for dinner.
The old friend, one of the greatest lines ever.
I know. I agree. I don't have any other questions. My eternal gratitude, Barry, for your time, and most importantly for the show that you made for us, which is absolutely incredible.
Thank you. What a pleasure. What a pleasure meeting you. And I thank all of you still in the audience, and thank you for your support and your partnership going forward. I think we have something special on our hands.
Terrific. Thank you so much, Barry.
Thank you. Talk again.
All right, guys. Take care. Have a great afternoon. I hope you enjoyed it.